what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Lineage Break, a Grand Archive TCG podcast. I am your host, Cam. With me, as always, is the glue, Steve.
Hey, guys. What's going on?
Hi, Cam.
How you doing?
Doing all right. We got some exciting news today.
It's been such a busy week. We just before this recorded our discussion about the BNR, which you guys will see after this episode. We have the design notes to talk about for Alchemical Revolution. I'm on like 3 hours of sleep.
Yeah, it's because you're being cursed in Discord.
So before I haven't. This is all happening live. I haven't told you about this. There's some the inquiring minds want to know. How do you, Steven, feel about slushies as a vessel for liquid? Are you a slushy enjoyer?
I mean, I slush.
You slush?
I slush
from time to time.
Yeah. If I see a Sonic, I'm stopping getting a slush.
Okay. Would you, if you had the opportunity, drink all of your water in slushy form?
Probably not.
Okay. We're just trying to see where you stand.
I do enjoy a nice water.
Okay.
From time to time.
Right.
You know,
But you wouldn't prefer it to be, crushed
slush.
ice.
Yeah. No, probably not all of the time.
Okay.
Like on a nice warm summer night.
Yeah.
Give me a slush.
Okay.
But we live in the fucking dead of winter
That's
sometimes.
true.
I'm not gonna be like
the ice cold is tough sometimes.
Oh, you know what? It's -2 out. Give me a slush.
There was a
probably not happening.
There was a long conversation about slushy machines and also, of course, Fat Tuesdays, who I'm a big fan of.
Okay.
Which I hope you're familiar with. You haven't been to Vegas. Have I told you about Fat Tuesdays? Have we had this discussion?
You've mentioned it in passing, but I do not understand what this is.
So Fat Tuesdays. Welcome to
Lineage Break. We're talking about food right now.
You guys are gonna go to Worlds in Las Vegas, May 10th through 12th, 2024. Be there.
Are we sure that this place still exists?
Yeah. So Fat Tuesdays it's a chain. There's like 12 of them. They're only in Vegas, and it's a chain, and they're on the Strip in Vegas. And they are an alcoholic slushy place. So all they do is make slushies that are, alcoholic. And if you've ever seen like pictures of people in Vegas, you guys will know if you've ever been, and you see people walking around with the plastic cups that are this big. They're all from Fat Tuesdays.
Sick.
So it's the best place in the world, I would say. For
Sick. Okay.
Alcoholic
so
slushies.
We will be going there then.
Constantly. I when Flesh and Blood Nationals was like a few months ago, and in Vegas, and when people were trying to convince me to go, I was like, one tab was looking at plane tickets for Las Vegas, the other tab was looking at the like seasonal menu at Fat Tuesdays. That's that's the kind of dedication that I have.
All right, well, I'll see you there.
So we'll see you there.
We'll see you there. Yeah, you'll see us there.
So anyways, we have some like Grand Archive to talk about.
Yeah, let's jump right into this because we got some pretty exciting notes.
We do.
How the champions are functioning. We got the new champions.
There's, I think, 30 spoilers in this article.
Yeah, it's wild. And let's just get started with Guardian because he's right at the top of the list.
Yeah, so as we go through the thing, we're not really going to spend a whole lot of time reading all of the spoiler cards. Of course, you guys should go check out the artitle and do that
it'll
yourself.
be linked below.
We're just gonna talk about the classes, talk about some of the new mechanics and how we feel, and let's start with Big Tony.
In the words of this article, let's start with Guardian, a class that focuses on field presence. The first thing someone may associate with Guardian as a role is a protector. Guardian-based strategies should excel at defending their own field, and some cards should reward them for doing so. The board-controlled focus strategies should increase the complexities of Grand Archive's combat system in a healthy and interactive way.
Yeah, so I think we saw like shades of this in FTC where we got Taunt is very much the Guardian mechanic about directing all of your attacks towards one thing, and we see that on Tonoris' level 1 as well. Has on enter, he gains taunt for the turn,
which is sick. It's a weird space to be actually. It's a very sick mechanic, but it's like, you want me to attack the champion?
You're approaching me. It's especially at level 1, it feels a little bit strange to direct all of the damage at your champion, right? But of course, life total is a resource, and it does allow you to develop these like more powerful but fragile threats, right? You think about powerful like lords, stuff like phalanx captains. Obviously, Guardian's not going to get to use those specifically. Right. And there is a mechanic we'll talk about later that I think really does benefit from this. But so yeah, Tonoris at level 1 gets taunt. He is worth noting. He's 20, 25, 30,
which is awesome.
So he is the highest health in the game, and he also has the biggest jumps in the game. Typically, it was warrior jumps in increments of 4. Guardian is up to jumping in increments of 5, which is pretty huge. And then we've seen level 2 Tonoris as well. And level 2 Tonoris has on enter, Tonoris' next attack this turn gains +3 power.
Which is awesome.
It's huge, for sure.
I've already like started workshopping things in my head for like alpha strike attacks when you hit 3, like number big.
It's huge. And it sort of gives us shades of Lorraine level 2, right?
Right.
Which was such a powerful way to use sweep attacks, and much like people would do out of class, even if Guardian doesn't get any sweep attacks, he'll still have access to stuff like Hurricane Sweep, Flame Sweep.
Right.
And especially with +3, he's making all of those attacks minimum 4.
Yeah, it actually, one of the first things I thought of was like, oh wait, Tidal Sweep is actually a card.
Yeah, right. Tidal Sweep has tax because it's 4 damage is a lot.
Right.
That sweeps most of the powerful threats in the game right now.
The human allies, yeah.
And I think it's really cool where it gives you a this sort of like balance where tapping Tonoris to attack with him is going to be a real cost, because we've seen at least a few cards here in this article that give your champion taunt. Of course, at level 1 he gains taunt, and none of that works if he is rested, right? So it's going to be a real like resource to rest your champion or not, which I think is really interesting.
Yeah. Speaking of taunt and being rested, I think this other mechanic for Guardian, I'm assuming it's for Guardian, is awesome. It is called Steadfast. And what Steadfast is an ally can retaliate when it is rested.
Yeah, and for free. It feels crazy if the card that we see it on here is Armored Valkyrie, and she's a 2/2, and then if she's retaliating, she gets +2. But think about this with any sort of creature that has like a pretty high health. Is insane how much value you get out of that. Like, we've already seen the power of cards like Lurking Assailant seeing a lot of play, because they get that sort of out of activation retaliate that allows you to trade up. But yeah, cards like this that, if for some reason this Armored Valkyrie can take more than one hit and she can dish out 4 damage twice, it's insane.
Right.
So I wonder if we'll see stuff like we have like Ocean's Blessing and water that like gives some health and taunt, and maybe we'll see some other effects like that for Guardian. I know that there's, again, a lot of prevention mechanics, so think about like a world where you have this Armored Valkyrie on the board, your opponent tries to kill it, you play everyone's favorite card, Resolute Stand, on your Armored Valkyrie, and then she just like is wiping anything that tries to touch her.
She essentially becomes a board wipe.
Right.
Which is awesome.
I mean, yeah, they do still have to run themselves into it, but
right. But if you are going to attack, like,
right, if you just like really have to remove it from the board, and you have to at worst like trade 2 or 3 creatures into it. I think this is a super powerful mechanic. I wonder how often we'll see it, because I think it is like
very strong,
so strong that maybe it's pretty uncommon.
It's like a sparse.
Yeah.
But the next Guardian mechanic seems also very cool, and it's aligned with the protecting your board, with using Steadfast and Taunt and stuff for like a beneficial effect.
Yeah.
And that is Foster.
Sure.
So at the beginning of your recollection phase, if this ally hasn't taken damage until the end of your since the end of your previous turn, it becomes fostered. And that just means that if it doesn't take damage, it gets an additional effect.
Right.
And so far, we've seen a few examples of this, like Imperial Recruit, If it is fostered, it gets +1 power as long as it's fostered.
Yeah, and that makes her a 2/3 for 2, which is just an incredible stat line. Yeah. This is the first time we're going to talk about it, obviously, because we're at the top of the notes here. But something that I've really noticed about ALC, and I'm curious if you feel the same, is that all 3 of these classes, I think actually Tonoris the least of the 3 of them as we move forward, but they are so much more mechanic dense, is what it seems like. The 3 of these classes seem way more intricate, and they have a lot more moving parts, which is, I think, a really interesting look into hopefully what Grand Archive is going to look like in the future, where I think, obviously, like Dawn of Ashes being the first set to have released, all of those classes are like pretty straightforward, and all of the abilities on the champions are also pretty straightforward, where it seems like a lot of the stuff that's going on in these design notes add a lot more depth to the game. So I'm curious if this is going to be what we're seeing going forward. Like maybe the first 4 classes were a little bit simplified in DOA, and then later in the game's life we'll see warrior and mage and tamer and assassin get a little bit more complex, get a little bit more decision dense here, because foster is the first permanent state mechanic that we're going to talk about today, but it is not the last. So there's going to be a lot more things.
And I honestly just from a game design point, I think permanent state effects like this are awesome for games.
Yeah, I think as long as they're handled well.
Correct. Yeah. They're always some of my favorite ways to play the game.
Right.
Because it's just like set up your board, and then your engine is online and it's doing a thing.
Right.
And I love that kind of game design.
Yeah. Yeah, and some of these cards are absurd, like the other foster card that we got, Recruitment Officer, is a just like a constant source of card advantage, where every time that she's fostered, you get to look at the top 5 cards of your deck and grab a human, an ally of any sort.
Ally, yeah, that's sick.
So yeah, that sort of effect is super, super powerful.
Yeah, it's just like you're setting up your turns and you're like building into something.
Right.
Going back to like my thought process of the Alpha Strike.
Yeah,
with
for sure.
With level 2 Tonoris, like I definitely think there's a lot of very intricate design space here in Guardian, and I'm very excited to see the rest of the spoilers.
Yeah.
So with that, I think we can move on from Guardian and move on to you, Cam. We're going to talk about Cleric now.
This is the end of the show. This is all we got.
Yeah. We're going to talk about Cleric now. Cleric class was designed similarly to Mage class, but with a deeper focus on interaction. Clerics specialize in more defensive spells and preventive effects. This includes protection and negation effects. Cleric's method of winning is usually more roundabout compared to the other classes, so Cleric players must outwit their opponent and buy themselves time.
Big brain, dude.
Big brain.
They said it right here. It's
right.
It's in the text.
It is in the text.
I am the biggest brain.
You are the biggest brain. Why don't you tell me what Arisana does?
Yeah. So I I was chatting with Sil yesterday.
Yeah.
And he asked me how I feel about the design notes, and I was like, I don't know, man. I'm still like my brain can't comprehend any of this, and I was hoping that today I would feel differently, but like, it's so much for me. I'm just like, I'm overwhelmed. I'm super happy. I think Ari is super cool. I love what they've done with Cleric as a class, because it seems just incredibly complicated.
I've already started teasing Cam whenever he mentions stuff. I just tell him to go pick herbs.
Yeah. So Ari, when she goes to level 1, she gathers twice. So gather is a new keyword that I assume is probably exclusive to Ari. Gather, you roll a d6, and depending on what you roll, you generate a token item herb. Then there's 6 different ones depending on what you roll on the die. And then she uses these herbs to either pay for potions. At level 2, she has the ability to sacrifice 2 herbs of the same name to draw a card. All of the herbs themselves have sacrifice effects for either +1 level or allowing you to like loot, draw a card, put a card on bottom. So she's going to use these herbs sort of as her resource mechanic to create potions, to draw cards, to pump her own level. And so it means that you just are given a million decisions when you play this deck, which I think is super cool. And the fact that this is a like random mechanic, right? You gather randomly, you roll a d6, but they've laid out the herbs in a way that they are not like super divergent. So it's not like you roll a 6, you get the good one. Oh, high roll, we did it. Like they're all like pretty similar. So I don't think that the RNG part is going to play a huge role. But the cool part about it is that, like I said, Ari's level 2 allows you to sack 2 herbs of the same name to draw a card. Mm-hmm. So that the RNG part will feed into that. And also the herbs are split into half catalysts and half adjuvants, or however you pronounce that, which will matter for some of the potions that she tries to brew.
And I think it's super cool that most of the potions that we've seen don't specify 2 of the same name.
Right.
They specify 2 or 1 or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, it seems like the easier ones are like 2 herbs, and then there is one that's a little bit more powerful that requires 1 of each type. Right. But yeah, so far we haven't seen any that are like you need 2 razor leaves or something.
Right.
But yeah, this sort of defensive, reactive gameplay style, while also adding on this layer of creating potions, and then she also has spells that buff her potions. There's just so much going on, man, that like I can
it definitely seems like a deck right up your alley, though.
I can barely wrap my head around it, and if you guys know me, I sure do love taking game actions, and this is a taking game actions kind of deck. I think.
It's very cool. I mean, we're seeing some of her new items for your material deck in the form of potions, and they have a keyword called brew, where you can sacrifice potions and play the potions. From
sacrifice herbs,
sacrifice herbs to play potions from your material deck, which seems pretty cool.
I think they're all in deck. I don't think we've seen any material deck potions yet.
You're right. I'm sorry.
So yeah, brew allows you to play them without paying their cost.
Right.
Yeah.
Look at that. Reading the card explains the
card. Brain hard.
Yeah,
I think who knows? Maybe we will see material deck potions. I think that would be super cool. We're also seeing an emphasis returning to balance, which was the cleric mechanic that we got not only on Lunette, but also on Gildis from DOA. So we're getting a little bit more memory manipulation. It seems like that is going to be one of the key focuses of cleric, is about manipulating your memory. We've seen a couple of cards now that have memory 4+ that care about you having X cards in your memory. I think they say it best in the article that cleric is big brain, and I think will be very hard to play and extremely difficult to master. So I get to spend the rest of my life playing Arisana. Yeah, something that is really evident with Arisana and also with Diana, who we'll talk about very shortly, is something that I didn't really feel from the DOA champions, and I don't feel so much from Tonoris, but I definitely feel from Ari and Diana, is the fact that this is a 7-class game. We're only getting our 7 classes. But Ari and Diana feel so much like their own characters within their class, and I find that super interesting from a game design standpoint, that like using cleric as an example, right? Like Arisana is very clearly an alchemist. It even says so in her level 2 title. And so her mechanics are all based around these herbs and creating these potions, where at some point when we get an additional cleric, they probably won't touch on these potion mechanics at all, right? They'll still fit into that class identity. But I think it's super cool that within our 7 classes, we're going to get these like highly specialized characters that like identify as one facet of what their class represents.
Right. So like overall cleric will have the memory manipulation and stuff. However, Arisana herself is just the alchemist.
Yeah, like not every cleric is going to be, gathering and making herbs. Like our next cleric could be, the like very typical, devout religious type, right? Sort of like Blanche and all about healing and protection, where that's not what Ari is all about. And we'll see that with Diana as well as we move into Ranger. I think it is really cool how Diana has sort of been carved out as this, gun-wielding sharpshooter that has a whole bunch of gun-based mechanics that we will talk about
right now.
Ranger
class had an interesting design goal of being a very reactive class, but also rewarding preparing and interacting with the opponent's turn. A major inspiration of how range-type units in MOBA and RTS games can kite their opponent. This is kind of how you're going to be playing your Ranger.
Yeah.
You're just kind of shooting from afar and hoping that someone doesn't run up and punch you in the face.
Yeah, getting additional effects for, like interacting with your opponent on their turn and sort of, not doing combat head-to-head, but sort of, trying to stay at a distance. So we get Diana is sort of based around the idea of a new subtype being gun. So it's the first time that we're seeing guns in Grand Archive. Obviously, that's playing into Azoth's more, technology-based theme. And so, like we said earlier, I think Diana fits into this really cool spot where she is very much based around a subtype, which is probably not the case for all Rangers, right? Like, I think at some point we will get our traditional, archer, bow-wielding Ranger, but Diana is this, more technology-focused, gun-based character. So the way that guns work is super interesting. They are weapons, so they all are in your material deck, and the way that they work is they function like weapons, but they cannot use attacks, like attack cards, and they have to be loaded before they can be shot. And the way that you load them is with ammunition cards, which are bullets in this case, that when you load a bullet into your gun, it gives it an additional effect. So these sort of become like gun-specific attack cards. So a lot of them have like debilitating effects on them, stuff like we see on Freezing Round. So it looks like they're going to be attacks that are a little bit weaker on the power scale, but will give additional effects to your weapon. And the one weapon that we've seen is it's called Seeker's Shot. It's sort of or Seeker's Rifle. It's sort of familiar to Sword of Seeking. It gets True Sight, and it has that same 1-2 stat line.
I think a very important thing about this weapon, though,
yeah,
it has Spell Shroud.
Yeah. I think this is hopefully a trend that they give your weapons Spell Shroud, because you're such a weapon-based character that if some idiot just rolls up with their Fracturize and says "sick gun nerd" and turns it into a fractal, you like probably just can't play the game anymore.
Right, especially because of how like it seems involved. Diana wants to be with guns and bullets.
Right. Yeah, you don't want to just like turn off her entire character just because you rolled up with a Fracturize in your deck.
So now my question is, do you think we're going to see other guns?
I think so. I'm hoping that they have Spell Shroud, or at least they're like so absurdly powerful that them being answered is like a power disparity, right? But yeah, I think she'll probably get some more guns. You can't really like build your gun-based Ranger and you only give her one weapon, right?
Right.
So yeah, that is super cool. I'm excited to see how many, combinations of weapon and bullet and stuff that we get. I assume that we'll get some more guns with some different keywords. This one has True Sight. Maybe we get some, some other, some cheeky stuff in there. And then adding on to what we talked about with Foster in Guardian, we have another permanent state keyword in Ranger, and that is ranged, which so ranged is a keyword that applies to units that are distant. So we're adding lots of new keywords to GA. It's going to be a lot of things to track, which is a little frightening to have so many things to track. Hopefully we have a pretty reasonable way to do this. It's obviously not a first in trading card games to have these sort of permanent states, but there are ways to handle it well and ways to handle it poorly, right? But so the way that ranged works is ranged gives an ability to your character as long as they're distant, and the way that distant works
is as long as it is the controllers of the creature or of the ally's turn.
Is that true?
Yep, right here. Units stay distant until the end of their controller's turn.
Okay, so it's when they come into play, though?
It says apply this effect only if your champion matches the class. It doesn't say, it's just on your turn, they're distant. That's how it reads here.
On Imperial Rifleman?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he has on enter, he becomes distant.
Oh, on enter, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and so distant lasts
until the end of the turn.
Until the end of the turn. Yeah. But they don't keep it, which is interesting. Because he only gets it when he enters play,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
So there might be other ways to give your allies distant, which I think is an interesting design space. Like we have Airship Engineer that says on enter, if you control a distant unit, draw a card into your memory. Which
and then
is really
you also
strong.
have Evasive Maneuvers, which is a prevention card that gives an ally distant.
Yeah, there you go. I like the fact that on Evasive Maneuvers, it's a unit, and it says if that unit is a ranger, and so it does count yourself, which is super cool. So you can target yourself. You are a ranger, and give yourself distant. Yeah, I wonder how many effects we'll have that give distant, because I don't know like how integral of a mechanic it'll be. Like it's the same with Foster, right? Like you can probably take it or leave it. You're not going to build your whole deck around being distant. But it is that sort of thing where Foster is like a very repeatable effect, where distant, you do have to have some sort of catalyst that gives your creature distant. And, if like effects like Airship Engineer are anything, like what we're going to get from the other distant cards, that is a super powerful effect. So I think it will be at a premium.
Right.
But yeah, so that's Ranger. It looks like Ranger is also going to have a lot of access to extra materialized phases, because it seems like a lot of their weapons and their bullets are all going to be material deck cards.
Yep.
Which I also find super interesting from a deck building standpoint, where I feel like Rangers are not going to have. It feels like what Lorraine had to do with like in Soul, right? Where like 6 of your material deck is taken up by these swords, and it allows you to have less of the like
generic broken.
Yeah, like generic like hate pieces and counter measures against other decks.
Right. So it feels more like it's going to be like, here's your guns and your bullets.
Right.
Here's 4 extra spaces.
Yeah, it's like how many are you running, right? If you're like, yeah, I run 5 bullets and I run 3 guns, and then I run my champion, and then it's like, what, you have a GCR and that's it, right?
Yeah. And then it makes, building a sideboard like matter now.
Difficult, yeah.
Because now you have to like focus on hate pieces, because it's just like,
yeah,
eventually you're going to have to find something, there's going to be a deck that's obviously counter, because most games have that rock, paper, scissors mechanic. So like something's going to block this, and then you got to have to find the cards in your sideboard to deal with it.
Right. And I love the idea that hopefully those are bullets, right? Like your sideboard, instead of bringing in your, Viridian protection trinket, you're bringing in some sort of, bullet that's good against water decks, and stuff like that. I think is a really interesting design space that hopefully they explore. So yeah, I think that is that's it. That's a lot. It's a lot to parse. And
there's a lot more into this article that, I mean, obviously we're going to link it below, that you should read, because this is a really cool space for the game. I think a lot of these champions have a lot of different paths you can take, and it feels refreshing from, the 4 that we have now that have their solved decks, and you have that line that you have to take for them. This feels new. This feels fresh. Obviously, it's new, but like it feels refreshing to the game point, like the from like a game stance, where it's just like, this is all new mechanics. All of these have such a wide range of like building your deck where it's just like gonna be fun to find those answers.
Yeah, I think like we said earlier, they feel a lot more intricate than our first 4 champions did. Where there's just a lot going on under the hood, right? Where there's so many mechanics layered here that you can probably build your deck and like probably ignore 1 or 2 of them, right? It allows you so many different directions to build your deck, right? You can build your Arisana deck that just doesn't play any potions,
Right.
like, and you just use your herbs as a draw card value on her level 2, right?
Yeah.
So I think deck building is going to be super interesting. I think Ascent Ontario is going to be super interesting because it's 2 weeks after the set comes out.
I'm very interested to see how many people just show up with 40 humans or something.
Yeah, like that's something to be said, right? That we still have these established decks, like, and after
just show up with the solve deck, maybe 1 or 2 edits to it.
Right. I think if we're making bets, I think Tonoris is going to be the one that's the most straightforward to put together.
Yeah, he seems very like protect your allies and then
play the good allies, protect them. Have large health pools, smack head with sword.
Yeah.
So I think we'll probably see a fair amount of Tonoris at that event, but I'm really interested to see the Diana decks and the Arisana decks at Ontario and see what people come up with.
Yeah.
And something that is like super mind-boggling to me is that this is Design Notes 1, because we haven't even touched on the 3 new advanced elements that are coming, and like it just feels insane to me to take these characters that already have so many complexities to them and add not only a level 3, which gives you more text, but add an entire advanced element onto these characters.
Yeah, I didn't even we've been talking about these for 25 minutes now.
Right.
I never even crossed my mind that they're going to get more complicated.
There's more going on. Yeah, for sure.
And I feel like there's already so much going on.
Right.
And now you're just going to add an advanced element onto it, and they're just going to be so cool.
Yeah, I mean, like, think about, any of the decks that we have existing, right? And how heavily the advanced element plays into their gameplay. Like, think about, like, Rai without Arcane, right?
Right.
Like, what does that character look like? And so hopefully, I mean, that's how these characters, I think, are going to feel, is that they get this whole additional, level of complexity once we talk about the advanced elements at some point in the future. But we do have spoiler season coming right around the corner.
We do.
Those are already announced. Those are starting on Monday, with Red Zone Rogue is starting our spoiler season off, and then we have that for I think it's like 2 weeks or something. I think it goes all the way until the beginning of November.
We can.
And there's some great content creators on that list. Make sure to check out everybody. There's a whole list on the Discord in the announcement section, and I believe they're actually linked at the bottom of this article as well. So make sure to check out all those lovely folks as we get to spoiler season. Steve and I are very excited for our spoilers. We've been sent a cryptic a set of ritual instructions to follow.
I told you, Cam. Don't do the ritual. It's not worth it.
Surely it's trolling. I don't really think it means anything, but we're super excited to see our spoiler cards.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's all that we have for you guys. Thank you guys for watching. We will catch up with you next week. While you're watching this, we did mention earlier that we recorded a episode talking about the bans and restricted list with Trent. So that will probably come out a few days after this episode comes out. I was told that we had to release today, that we are recording this episode. We had to release this episode today. And so you're going to see this on the day that it was recorded.
Yep.
And I was promised.
And there's not going to be a lot of editing.
That's true. I don't have time to put the card images in because some people that designed this game demanded that this episode get put out.
And we listened to the devs.
So that we can get that Arisana level 2 CSR.
Yeah.
Ooh, baby. We didn't even talk about Tony. Oh man. You guys should go check it. Go to Twitter. Sorry, X. Go to Siladar's Twitter. Check out all the CSRs he's been posting.
He posted 2 Diana CSRs and 2 Tonoris CSRs.
Yeah, Tony B. He's ripped, dude.
Tony B. All right. I've never been like I need to chase the CSR.
Yeah.
I need to chase
That's
that
the
Tony.
one?
I gotta chase that Tony B.
You need the 8-pack?
I gotta have that 8-pack. I gotta.
I think he's gonna be a pricey one. I think the thirst trap is gonna be expensive stuff.
You know, I'm hoping that most people that are playing this anime card game don't have the mindset like me, and he's not a cute girl, so price will not be expensive.
Hopefully, you can hope.
I can hope. Oh, we know this is copium. Insert Tony B copium.
Tony B copium.
Which I have favorited all of the Tony B emotes, so I can have quick access to them in the Discord. However, he's probably going to be pricey.
We will see. Time will tell.
I'm hoping that in all of the product I open, I just open one.
Or
I open an Arisana and can...
Easy peasy. Yeah, I know for a fact all I'm opening is Tony because it's not what I want.
Right.
So, you know.
Yeah, no, you're going to open... You're going to take
right?
your box, you're going to open the first pack, it's going to be Arisana, you're going to be like...
Perfect. I hope so. Please.
This is gonna be
Please,
fine.
dear God. And then the next pack is
You're just going to get a
one,
box
you know.
and it just says your name on it. They're just going to...
That's what I'm saying. You know, listen, I've seen it happen. I'm not gonna make a big deal about it. I'm on 3 hours of sleep, so we're unhinged. But you know,
you can put the unhinged back in the box.
I know that they've sent some boxes out that had seeded CSRs in them. I saw those videos. All right, I just anyways. Hey, thank you guys for watching.
We will tinfoil hat on cam over here.
It's true. All right, listen. All right. We're leaving.
Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you later.